Hello and welcome everybody, it's WonderCat, and today we're going to be taking a look at Fairy Fencer F. This is a video that I've been putting off for quite some time, and I have dropped some hints about probably wanting to do this. Initially, I wanted to do a review style for this, which is a big reason why it was taking me so long to get to it, and I wanted to finish the entire game. It's not going to happen. Because, unfortunately, I'm just not that huge of a fan of this game. And it's depressing because I really wish that I was. There are quite a lot of things that I like about this game, but overall there's just... well, let's get into it. So, right here, I'm going to talk to a couple of the characters, and I'm going to give you guys an idea of how interactions in this game occur. So, here you see Tiara, who is on the right, and Fang, the main character, on the left, talking about how there are more people in their group all of a sudden. Well, Fang is a pretty lazy dude, and the basic story is that Aaron here was in the form of a sword and had been in a rock kind of Excalibur style for a very long time, and everybody had heard a rumor that if you pull her out from said rock, that you would get a wish granted or something. He pulls her out with the intention of wishing for food because, well, you know, he's kind of a lazy dude. So, being lazy and hungry, he pulls her out with the intention of this, and she basically tells him that there are 100 other Furies, and he can't get his wish until he finds all of them, to which he's basically like, no thanks, lady, I'm gonna do something that doesn't require all that effort. And she's like, oh, well, you know, I kind of forgot my memories, so you kind of have to, you know, be involved with me. Sorry. And a lot of the humor from the early game happens from that dynamic. They later come across Tiara, who then, well, she's not exactly the most friendly person in the world when you first meet her. Anyways, each of these characters are either a Fury themselves or a Fencer. Fencers being the people who control the Furies and use their powers as partners. Alright, so you already know about Fang and Aaron. Tiara has like a little bunny-looking thing as her Fury. Bahas here is the Fury of Harley, and Bahas basically turns into guns. Then Marissa is Galdo's Fury, who turns into a scythe. Now, their main objective, once you get all of these things, is to try to revive one of these great creatures who battled in some kind of crazy war a long time ago. The objective is basically to revive the goddess here and just not do anything about the vile god. There are stat boosts attributed to doing these revivals, though, so you can get beneficial stats from, you know, reviving pieces of the vile god, but your teammates will chastise you for it. Alright, and here there's a pretty basic shop of pretty much no notable worth, except the fact that you can do some pretty hilarious stuff like, you know, buy toast, which will hang out from Fang's mouth as he battles and such. The pub here is for accepting quests, which all the quests basically are is either fetch or kill quests, where you're meant to kill X number of blah 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 blah. It's kind of MMO style, and it's a way to pad the game along, and in a sense, to certain degrees, these are kind of necessary to do at least sometimes if you want to progress through the game. Either that, or you'll be doing a whole lot of grinding anyways, so you pretty much might as well. And that's one of the first things that I don't like about this game. It has a very MMO, slow, grindy feel, which doesn't allow you to get to the story bits that are actually worth a crap, and the humor, which is actually very good. Outside of that, you can talk to random pub members. You can go to the plaza here and talk to a little girl character who will give you information about where to find other Furies, as well as just random townspeople. And in the world map, there are some other things going on as well. Now, the way the world map works is that each and every one of these areas can be affected by what's called world shaving. So I'm going to show you an example of that here. Each Fury you collect, if they're not being used for anything else, which could be they're used for the character that they're typically working with, or you can use a second Fury that you get as a synchronized thing to give more power to you, which I will demonstrate later. If you're not doing either of those, you can stab one of these little swords into the world, and you'll get bonuses for it. So in this case, I get a bonus to my physical defense stat, but my magical attack stat goes down. In this case, I have plus 30% EXP in exchange for -2 physical defenses. Now, before we actually go into battle, I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit of how things work in this game. So, you're able to boost certain stats or certain weapons dependent on what you feel like your characters need each time that you level up. Outside of this, you also have abilities like skills and magic and such that you can eventually equip. Which I honestly haven't done a whole lot of that. You can also equip other items and such like normal, or more interestingly, other furies aside from your main one, which will just basically give you more strength. There are different classes of each fury. In this case, most of mine are C, but another thing that determines their strength is their level, which is how often you've used them. Okay, so aside from that, we're going to go ahead and jump into battle. And there are two ways this can go. If I attack him first, I get the preemptive strike as you've seen there. If that little thing attacks me first, then he will basically get to not only attack me first, but they will also probably have stronger enemies that will attack with him. And that will be shown as an ambush. Now, I'm going to show you one of the interesting things about this game in particular, which is a transformation called fairizing, which is kind of weird. You gotta just stab yourself, and you end up as, like, this weird fairy and fencer hybrid thing, which gives you the power to do things like this. Now, the animations in this game are quite interesting and busy, but considering that this was a PSP game, or not PSP, but PS Vita, really, for a PS Vita game, it actually looks pretty good. A lot of people have complained about the way that this game looks visually, but I have absolutely nothing bad to say, and it looks right in line with other Compile Heart games, particularly their more famous ones like Trinity Universe and Hyperdimension Neptunia. Sorry, I'm kind of like getting dehydrated here. Anyway, you can change which one of these protagonist type characters that you want as your main character on the field in any given time. And on top of that, each of these people have their own unique skills and abilities, as well as their own unique Fair Eyes forms. And as you see with the skills, they each have dedicated ranges in which you can hit. So if you're careful, you can actually hit multiple creatures with the same blows. Because most of these skill attacks are AoE in some fashion or another. Each character also has definitive roles, and if you combo properly in this game, as you see here, you can pretty much just attack things, I wouldn't say forever, but it sure feels that way. You can attack for quite a long time, and this is actually a feature that got brought over from Trinity Universe that I quite liked when I was playing my PlayStation 3 version of it, in which you can combo things. But unfortunately, in Fairy Fencer F, this is very watered down in comparison to what it was in Trinity Universe. And it just feels cheap. Anyways, that being said, once you've done enough of this overworld stuff, you'll end up in certain event areas which the game wants you to get to, and once you've been in those event areas, you will be able to do certain things that you are not like normally able to do in terms of the progressing the story, where characters will have random interactions with each other and suggest things that'll happen, and maybe even have a boss fight here or there. It's your pretty standard JRPG fare. Each character, as you see there, does have certain attacks that are going to hit weaknesses of other characters, which is nice, but functionally it doesn't really matter most of the time unless you're dealing with bosses, because most of the time, by the time that you get to the point where you get to the story things involved, you're so over-leveled as poop that these kind of creatures, they don't really threaten you. So unless you come here dramatically under-leveled, you're not going to need to hit them with the types of attacks that they're weak to. And in that sense, this game is very mindless. Anyways, now I've been harping over the same shit for a while, excuse my language, but now I'm going to go ahead and talk about sound assets to this game. Now, you may be thinking, what could be wrong with the sound in Fairy Fencer F? It sounds fine. Well, the problem is that in Fairy Fencer F, particularly if you use your fairizing ability, it doesn't matter which character you're doing it with, it's all going to be the same sounds. And the battle music is roughly the same no matter what situation that I've seen so far. Granted, I'm only 6.5 hours into the game myself, but battle music is typically the same all the time anyways, unless you're in particular sequences. So you end up in this position where you've heard everything, and it wears on you. Like, a lot. I can tell you right now that this overworld music is the exact same overworld music you hear in the first level. And considering I'm 6.5 hours into the game, that's not really a good thing. You may wonder why I'm jumping around there. You also get bonuses for doing arbitrary things like walking a certain amount of steps in the overworld with characters, or all of the characters, jumping a certain amount of times, and other such shenanigans which can boost your stats. So, all things considered, that's pretty much the way that Fairy Fencer F works, and there's unfortunately really not a whole lot else to say about this game, and that's the killer. If there was more going on with it, I could accept that there's not that much, things to do when you're between story moments. I don't want to sit there and do fetch quests MMO style. I can play an MMO for that. You play a JRPG, or even a single-player game in general these days, for the story. And unfortunately, they make you jump through a lot of hoops to get from plot moment to plot moment, trying to pad out the game. And it's that padding that really just kills it. Alright everybody, this has been WonderCat, and hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you do still want to find out more about Fairy Fencer F, you can take a look somewhere on YouTube. Just look up a walkthrough and take a look at the first 30 minutes of the game. It'll tell you whether the style of humor of the game is your kind of thing or not. And if it is your kind of thing, then it's on Steam, and I have no idea what it would cost right now, but I do know it was recently on a sale that made it like $14. I'm not aware if that is still going on as of today or not. But regardless, hopefully you learned something from this video and you enjoyed yourself. This has been WonderCat, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.